Raj, I want to shift it over to you for just a second. What was it like for you when you're the CEO of the company and Dad sold the business? How involved in that conversation were you, and how did that go? Do you mind sharing?
Sure. Yeah. Well, I mean, it was my idea.
Okay.
Frankly, I saw it as that our industry going in a direction that was, we'd be better off being acquired by a larger company, and that came to fruition. My dad fought me every step of the way and felt like, no, you're wrong. It's telecom is alive and well and good, and we just need to do this and that, despite struggles in the industry and kind of the handwriting on the wall. So yeah, I think he's still pissed at me today, Mike, honestly, that sold his business, even though he was 75 when that deal closed in July of 2013. It's probably the best thing that ever happened to me, but it was trouble. But so then fast forward to my idea or not. My idea was not to leave the business. It was to stay. I genuinely felt it was a good opportunity for me too, larger business, other vendor opportunities, structure, and so on. But what really happened over the course of the next several weeks is I got tossed into a corner, just kind of solo. My title was stripped, and I was just expected to generate revenue in the federal market sector, which it was crazy. And again, since I've never worked anywhere before, but I find out after the fact that this happens to a lot of people, right? When they sell a business and they expect to stay in it, it generally doesn't work out that way. But I made it all 7 weeks, and the company bought us, was shocked, very unhappy, ended up suing me, suing my dad, withheld final payments, et cetera, et cetera. It all got worked out about a year later, and everything's good. But yeah, interesting. But I had no idea what it was going to be like.
Sure.
Yeah.
There's an author out there that I'm friends with, Tom Dean. I don't know if you ever saw his book. It's called Every Family's Business. And it's just interesting because, what you brought up, Raj, is the fact that you were the one that, came up with the idea of we really need to be thinking about selling for all the right reasons. It was the market's changing. Do we want to change with the market? Are we big enough to be able to handle the change? And that's one of the things that Tom, says in his book. And I push people all the time is that, every couple of years, you really need to be asking each other, should we be selling? And if you don't want to sell, do you want to buy? And if we're not having that conversation on a regular basis, then it's that going back to authentic, like Kim said, we're not being authentic with each other, and that's really causes friction.
I think of it as the what next strategy, right? That might be succession or some other form of transition. It might be an exit strategy that involves selling. But if you're not having that conversation about, do I really want to be here? And I will say that when I left tour of duty number 2, I'd been running the steel heat treating business for just about 5 years, 4.5 or thereabouts. I'd had a really ambitious strategic plan for 5 years. We'd done everything that I wanted to do. I knew what came next, and I had zero interest, zero. And I knew that the best thing for the business was for me to make a shift. And I have such vivid memories of that process and that conversation. And my dad really rejecting this idea that like, no, I'm not kidding. I know what needs to happen next, and I'm not interested. It's going to be a very quality focused, very technical, all the things that I really love. We've gotten our arms around. This is going to be a great mission, but I am not the general to lead us into battle for that mission. And no joke, Mike, 5 hours at the conference table, we'd go around in circles. And then we'd get to a certain point and I'd be like, and here are my 3 non-negotiables. And he'd be like, no. And we go around again. I think it's hard, but you're right. You got to check in, because hopefully we're not so static that everything just stays the same forever.
Yeah.
But it's a hard conversation.
Agreed. And it sounds, both of you, without using the words, it sounds like, in your head, you were looking at the SWOT analysis of business and, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and know that there's some things in front of you, of where you were going and what you were doing. But the generation that was controlling the businesses at the time, for the most part, weren't in agreement with that SWOT analysis. And there again is that cognitive dissonance, and that friction that we try to avoid by open dialogue and communication. That's it's interesting, very, very interesting that you both had the emotional intelligence to see the difference between where you were and what needed to happen, or where you were going. Good for you. When we look at we've talked about family business forums and the importance of making sure that you're part of one. I would one of the things that we're starting probably in the next, we put a date on the calendar of when it's going to start, but we're going to do a family business book club for people that maybe don't have they can do a meeting a quarter. And so we can read a book and then everybody get together about it. And then that to spur those conversations and spur those things, and kind of the interim, I would call it, before you jump into a family business forum.